I'd like to call the October 28th, 2015 board meeting to order and ask you all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Calder.
Do we need to have attendance first?
No, we can do it.
Okay.
Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Here.
Mr. Calder?
Here.
Mr. Bufardi?
Here.
4 present.
We have a quorum. I have a few things on for supervisory report. First, Halloween is Saturday, October 31st, 2015. Designated hours for trick-or-treating is from 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. And the Rotterdam Police Department is once again asking for parents to cooperate and have the children home by 8 o'clock p.m. The second is Veterans Day services will be Wednesday, November 11th, 2015. Please join us at 2:30 p.m. at the Town Hall. And visit our website at www.rotterdamnewyork.org for additional information regarding veteran services. I also have a presentation that I'd like to do about the 2016 budget and what I have proposed. A couple things about that. And I'm going to ask Ms. Every, who's actually the author of this budget, to come forward and speak. But before I do that, I'd like to say that I'm a member of an outgoing administration. I'll be leaving. So even though I've been told that my budget probably won't pass, and I understand that, that is still my obligation to present one, which I have done. This budget reflects a total package budget, or at least I believe it does, to keep with the obligations, the expenses, and certainly to stay within levels of service and not having any layoffs or cutback in employees. And because I'm tasked for the 2016 budget and I won't be here, I felt responsible to present a budget that present levels of service would be sustained and that would carry forward, again, without layoffs or reduction to services. However, it should be obvious that a new board coming in or new administration coming in can certainly spend less than what I budgeted for. That's certainly possible. In 2015, I came in at 0 over what we had in 2014. My 2016 budget is 1.86% over the 2015 tax levy. And the increase of that is for some mandatory services, mandatory changes to obligations, probably most specifically our insurance expenses. However, the approved government efficiency plan will include a rebate from the state for the 1.86%. So for all practical purposes, that will come in at 0 because of that rebate. So for 2 affected years, we are at a 0. The total budgetary appropriation for the 2015 budget was $22,440,244. The proposed 2016 budgetary appropriations are $22,666,272. Pardon me? Excuse me, million. I said, wouldn't that be nice if that wasn't a mistake? This is an increase of just over 1% over last year's budget, or $226,228 in total. The tax levy for the 2015 budget was $11,973,002 based on a 0 budget increase from the 2014 budget. The tax levy for 2016 tentative budget is $12,196,109, which is approximately 1.86% higher than the 2015 tax levy. The amount of the increase is $223,107. And again, like I said, because we joined with a filing with the state, that will be a rebate coming back to taxpayers in the town of Rotterdam, which will bring them back down to 0. The levy meets the property tax guidelines and means eligible homeowners will receive any rebates they are entitled to under this program. Appropriations in the general fund were lowered by $216,521, approximately 1.46% from the previous year. Retirements by higher salaried employees and restaffing with employees at lower salaries helped bring this amount down for 2016. I have personally reviewed all the requests and attended budget meetings and with department heads in order to create this tentative budget for the public's review and comments. Certainly, I would like to extend my thanks to Deputy Supervisor Wayne Calder, our Comptroller Jackie Every, Dawn Wiggins, Carol Conley, and Audrey Knobloch for helping put this together. This is a tight budget. I understand that it is a living document, that it's subject to change by a new administration that will be coming in 2016, and they will meet their own challenges. But it was my purpose to try and bring forward enough money to meet those challenges. And I'll turn it over to Jackie Every for a further presentation.
I just wanted to let you know what we base the budget amounts on. The taxable assessed values for the homestead property owners remain consistent from 2015 to 16 for the assessor. The taxable assessed values for non-homestead property owners fell by 4% from the prior year. This was due to a court-ordered reduction of a taxable assessed value, so we did have a lowering in the non-homestead area. The 2016 budget assumes the full cost of the retirement system payments for the year and does not amortize the payments. The actual invoices will not be available until November, so the budget payments are based on estimates provided to us by the retirement system. The local employee rate is slightly lower, but the police rate will remain about the same for the higher level employees at this time. Our health benefit costs were projected on the following rates. MVP went down approximately 3.6% to 3.4% for the year of 2016. CDPHP is forecast to be 5.3%, down from 7.25. Empire, which is the state insurance, is up from 4.5 to 8%. Our dental, which is self-insured, had no raise last year but has gone up 8% this year, and our vision insurance has stayed the same. The general fund completed 2 serial bond issues in 2015, and 1 bond anticipation note was completed. In our revenue projection, sales tax has remained the same for 2016. It does not appear to have significant increases in our quarterly economic abatement payments this year at this time. The franchise fees have also remained the same, and the mortgage tax receipts have been projected slightly lower based on the past few years that we have of information. The budget for 2016 attempts to divide the available funding provided under the tax cap levy guidelines to each department for necessary expenditures for staff, services, and supplies. The sewer treatment plant has funding for a generator, which is critical to maintaining its operations and which needs to be replaced as soon as possible. The town's fiscal stress score decreased from 8.3% to 5% based on the New York State Controller's report because of 1 less year of operating deficits. The town has a no designation rating because it rates between the 0 and 44.9% of scores.
Any questions for Ms. Every?
Yes. Ms. Avery, is the effective tax increase on the residents this year 9.2%?
The effect would have to be, I'm looking at the homestead rate, which is risen from 3.42 to 3.72, which is 30 cents per thousand, which means that they paid at home $200,460.77 for general and $222.48 for highway in 2015 for $683.25. Then it would go up to $743.06. It's approximately $59.81 over 2015 at this point,
All right.
which is 8.75-ish.
Okay, so you have 8.75% tax increase?
For the general and the highway fund for the homesteaders.
Okay, all right. See, what I did was, I ended up, now I'm a lay person, so you gotta help me understand just a little bit here. I ended up pulling the tax rates off of the 2015 budget, final budget, in the 2016 budget that this administration proposed. And what I did was, I took very little time, so please don't, look at my artwork. But I see on here that the general tax rate was people would have to pay just about $2.31 for every value of their property in 2015. And then this year, in 2016, right, they have to pay $2.42 per $1,000 of the value of their house. That ends up being an increase on our residents for the A fund at just about 5%. Is that accurate?
If that's what your numbers say, yes, I don't have my chart with me. so-
Is that what your numbers say?
I don't have my chart on me, sir, so my
Okay.
chart does have the actual listing of the tax rate numbers.
No, you're correct. And in all fairness, I should probably provide you the 2015 and the 2016 budgets so that you can play along.
It's not a game.
No, it's not. But the consequences are dire. All right. So I'll let you flip to the back. And then what I notice is in 2015, businesses for our general fund, which pay for all of our expenses, such as the police department and town hall and the senior centers and the parks department, in the primary bulk of what goes on. But in 2015, the businesses were taxed at about $4.64 per thousand of their value. And then in 2016, they're paying just over $5. That seems to be about an 8% increase on the tax on business. And now that you have the numbers, can you agree with me so far?
No, because what you're looking at is a preliminary estimated rate. The actual rate comes from when the tax roll is put on and the assessed values come out. So those rates do differ slightly. They're not exactly those numbers, and that's why they're listed as estimated until they're actually allocated for the assessment of the tax roll.
But that's what we're budgeting for.
Right, and in
These are-
2015, I'm sorry, in 2015, you actually had a savings the prior year of $65, I believe it was, from the homeowners, because you fell backward from a 2.45 rate to a 2.3 rate.
But we had $150 in new fees. So saving $65 and paying, a significantly more between fees, isn't really a savings. But let's move on. Now, the highway fund, it looks like in past years, 2015, it was $1.11 per thousand. It's gone up to 1.29, which ends up being like almost a 16% increase.
Yep,
And then it gets even worse for businesses, 18%.
right.
So basically, if this budget passes, okay, if it does pass, the effective tax rate on our residents is just shy of 10% estimated.
Right, right, and the reason the highway budget went up is because you added $317,000 to their budget from last year. So that's gonna have a material effect on what the rate's going to be. You've given them appropriations higher than what they had the prior year. And also you had the decrease in the non-homestead taxable assessed value by $20 million. You lost 4% of your value. So of course
Correct.
that's going to cost people more to cover.
So now what we need to do is, my understanding is that about $100,000 in our budget is about a 1% tax levy. That number's been bandied about year after year. And as rates have gone up, it's actually a little shy of that. It's now $98,000. But in any event, it's about $100,000. So in order to have a flat tax levy, even in a year with a substantial decrease in property values, there would have to be a suggestion of $1 million worth of adjustments to the budget. Is that about correct?
If that's your argument, I wouldn't do it without doing the math. I wouldn't answer that
Okay,
question.
well, $100,000 is about 1%. Is that true?
I don't know, I wouldn't look at it without doing the math, so no, I can't answer that question. This is a question on the floor without me doing the calculations, so no. I won't
Okay.
answer.
Fine. But you agree with the figures up there.
I
Those
agree
are
basically.
in your budget.
The tax rates are very close to what I believe I've seen as tax rates currently.
Okay, actually, the tax rates, I believe, are extended out to 6 or 7 digits. I only did it to the 5 digits, but whatever. So our residents are looking at a 10% tax increase when this budget passes.
Yes,
And based on a quirk in the town law, if this budget passes or fails, that's going to be the tax levy on the residents, correct?
that will be the estimated one until the actual assessment works through on the tax roll.
Thank you very much.
Jackie, I have a question.
Wait a minute.
Yep, sorry.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Couple too. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, when I was looking at the budget, I did not see money to hire any employees in the water department. As far as I know, the water department has been pretty much gutted. We don't have any people working it, and we have water main breaks like every couple of weeks. We've had to use the highway department to do the water department's work, and they're not complete, I mean, they do a good job, but they're not really trained for that. why are we not having any money in the water department for hiring? And also, I'm wondering, I also noticed once again this year, there's no money in for paving. You know, the roads around Rotterdam are bad shape. Why don't we have money for that? I think we're allocating our money into the wrong locations instead of allocating into positions and places that are important for the livelihood and subsistence of the town to function properly.
Your water department has 3 full-time employees, so that water department is
Who
currently
are
staffed.
they?
Ian Bonthron, Justin Peterson, and Rick Rorick. Your water and sewer repair personnel, you had Ronnie Constantino retire, you still have Jerry Gittarelli and John Gordon, who's here till the end of the year, and I believe their salaries are still placed into next year's budget as a water and sewer maintenance line distribution personnel.
Are we gonna-
They are not completely underwater, they are water and sewer because they repair both facilities.
Are we gonna be hiring anyone so that, I mean, we have any money that we set aside to hire more? So when we lose them, we have people, because it shouldn't be the highway department's job to do the water main breaks. For them assisting is fine, but it shouldn't be their job. We need to have a water department instead of just gutting it.
And we do need licensees on the jobs.
Yes.
We've posted that position a couple
Right.
times.
Right.
And we kept money in there to
And we
be able
have
to
the
hire.
same money in the lines.
To compound the issue, right, just so we understand what we're talking about, right, this is at least the 3rd year running, not a single dollar has been allocated by the town towards highway resurfacing, correct?
I would guess, I
That's
didn't look
correct.
at that, yeah, I would say yes.
You wanna go
because
down
it-
that road?
Yeah.
Yes,
Goes
yeah.
to the CHIPS money.
Okay, well, the CHIPS money, everybody gets the CHIPS money, so it's not like this town is giving us any money. Now, with that, right, we're about $1 million high. That's what the 9.2% represents, right? One road, just paving one road, let's say it's Greenpoint Ave, because everybody knows Greenpoint Ave, right? The paving of Greenpoint Ave cost $80,000 this year. We have allocated no money for highway resurfacing other than the CHIPS money, which is about $230. This year we ended up getting some hard winter money, so $270, right? We have less money than what it would take to properly pave 3 roads like Greenpoint Avenue on an annual basis. We have 200 miles worth of roads in this town. With 200 miles worth of roads, it's my understanding after taking the newly elected officer class that I took a couple of years ago, that I don't believe the administration ended up taking, but 1/10 of your roads should be resurfaced every year, and we have less money than to pave 3 roads. Is that your understanding of the cost? Because you end up paying those bills, right?
My understanding of the cost is based on the mileage that's located within the town, not a street per se. So I do not measure the streets, so I couldn't honestly tell you how much mileage per street they have to do per year.
Okay, I'm glad that you asked. You should be familiar with this document. It came from your office. Costs about $80,000 to pave a road like Greenpoint, right?
Who is this bid from? Is this actually the actual bid, or was this the bid that was not piggybacked?
These were the proposals. I gave you a bid there, and I have another bid here. But it ends up costing about $80,000 a road for a road the size of Greenpoint, correct?
Yes, but I'm asking, I don't know the depth of what the paving is, so this sheet can tell you whatever it wants to tell you about pricing. It doesn't tell you the depth of the berm and what you're putting in, because I know some highway superintendents use a smaller depth of berm, others use a larger depth of berm. So
Okay.
it depended on what contract you took, the New York State contract or the Schenectady County contract, which was supposed to be piggyback bid for a certain type of depth of berm.
Well, 12,100 square yards of material is about $80,000. Okay, all right. So we have enough money to pave about 3 roads a year at that rate. Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
Could I expand on that?
certainly.
We're required to have road maintenance records on every road in town of Rotterdam? You know how many road maintenance records we have on the miles and miles of road in Rotterdam?
I've never seen any.
I have never seen it either, and I've asked for it repeatedly. That's a requirement of law in order to budget properly for road pavement. And things have to be taken into effect, factors like vehicle weights, volume of traffic, weather conditions, when it was paved last. There has to be some type of analysis to determine what roads get paved when. I asked for that in the budget request. Did we get one in the budget request?
No.
And what was the original budget request on top of the CHIPS money?
$500,000 as they talked
And
about.
after the first sentence, what was it reduced to after that?
I believe it was, I will do with the CHIPS money, is what he wanted.
Right, so it went from 500,000 to about 250,000 in like a one sentence, without any evaluation of any roads.
Correct.
You know, in 2015, some of the roads that were paved, so if we're gonna select this on vehicle weights, volume of traffic, and weather conditions, and we have to have a constructive analysis of what roads we're going to pave as a requirement of law, which we didn't have. Would it surprise you if it was the highway superintendent's personal dead-end road that he lives on was one of the ones that were selected to be paved?
Nothing would surprise me anymore.
And the other one was a short road on Chapel Street?
Yes, I know about that.
Without evaluation, without road maintenance records, without coming to the town board to get approval to do this, which will be a requirement in order for me to report a budget that would be accurate and would meet the standards.
Right.
And let's say for sake of argument, that we allowed for the $500,000 request for road pavement in Rotterdam, and I would like to have my road repaved also. But let's say we went along with that. Would that break the tax cap?
Oh, definitely.
By how much?
You probably would be over by $400,000 more now, so you'd probably be over by 4% more than what you should be.
But you can do the $100,000 to 1% computation when he asks.
No, I can actually know what's left in the budget property tax cap line. It's not the budget itself, it's what's left in the property tax cap amount. It's a different animal.
The two roads that Mr. Supervisor referred to, isn't it true that they were done under a pilot program where the highway superintendent was having his own staff pave the roads as opposed to contracting it out as it had been done in the
There were
past?
still two roads that were selected, and one accidentally happened to be the road that he lives on. I think that certainly points to a favoritism factor. And it wasn't based on a long-term road maintenance record. It wasn't based on the required records. It wasn't based on any type of evaluation or rubric or grading system to be able to qualify which roads should be paved.
Quite the contrary, right? If you're a barber and you're learning how to cut hair, you don't hang up a shingle, you cut your own kid's hair first.
But I don't cut my own hair.
If somebody's gonna end up getting a bad haircut, you want it at home.
Okay, so we'll take taxpayer money and we'll experiment with bad haircuts. I don't consider that budgeting. Wasn't the requirement for budgeting for more road paving to come up with a comprehensive plan that was adopted by the board, that was a requirement of law that comes out of the controller's office? And I also sent a copy of that requirement to Mr. Lamore before he put it in for his budget on July 20th, 2015, that required this, to say you meet the comprehensive plan and I will consider those requests.
Yes, sir. And also, as part of the plan, when you spend the money, you should be doing under the bidding contract policy that the town adopted, which is normally state contract for the bidding prices, which I had to dig out from the New York State Controller because the highway superintendent in this case wanted to piggyback on a county proposal, but did not do so correctly.
Well, actually did not do it legally.
I don't know about legalities, I just know it was done, not done correctly.
So that piggyback contract, the roads were already paved on a piggyback contract that wasn't approved by the board or by your office.
Correct.
So we had to go backwards and approve that expenditure
Yes, sir.
that wasn't bid out, that wasn't under state contract, that didn't meet the requirements of law.
Yes, sir.
So if it doesn't meet the requirements of law, would you not say that that's illegal?
Yes, sir, because that
So
was.
we went backwards and authorized an illegal expense to cover the expenditures that were inappropriately made.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see how this administration's budget's been doing. Building Rotterdam's future. That was the tagline for this administration. And coincidentally, the blue line that is up there is the path that the town was going on at the time that this administration came in. And these numbers were actually generated by John Polino, the consultant hired by you for my first couple of years of being on the board. The red line was the financial path that the town was on after this administration had been in for a year. Are you familiar with those numbers as well as John Polino's 5-year prospection?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and those numbers are familiar that in 2018, if we continued on the financial path that we were on, we would be having deficits of almost $2 million per year, and considering that our entire A-fund tax levy is only $7.4 million a year, we would have a deficiency of almost 30% of our entire tax levy.
Yes,
That's pretty dire consequences, isn't it, Madam Controller?
that's your opinion, yes.
I don't see that red line going up.
It's a forecast. It's got to be, the first year isn't done yet for 2015 to see where the projection finished. So it's all a forecast. It's also based on a 2% tax levy increase, which this year you only picked up because you had a zero budget, so there was money to be used. In the future years, you won't be able to levy 2% on there, so your budget will get tighter. So that forecast was done before the assumption could be made that New York State truly did not give you 2%.
But not only that, it's also based on that we have no new equipment being purchased and that there would be no payroll increases. And it was based on a lot of assumptions that are simply fanciful.
Well, they're actually true. We haven't purchased any new equipment. Every time police cars come around, we haven't purchased those. The payroll increases are what's in the budget now, and the contract ends at the end of this year for, I know at least one of the unions. I'm not sure if the second one does. So
Both.
some of those assumptions are still holding up.
Yeah, but in future years, I mean, the unions aren't going to take 0, 0, 0 for the next 3 years. So actually, that red line will be shift from a ski slope to a free fall.
It would depend on how many people you keep on staff in each department, or if you choose to hire out certain portions of a job that's more economical to give to a private business and contractor to complete in a more timely fashion.
And you know what the thing is? That's exactly where I wanted to go. The budget that I plan to propose will do exactly those things. It will shift services to the outside, and it will find cuts where available. And hopefully, I'll have the opportunity to present some of those a little later.
Okay, can I just, the 2016 proposed budget that I made, does it meet the tax cap?
Yes, it does.
Do we leave money on the table?
Yes, you did.
Could you explain what that is?
You have approximately $113,000 that you left in there that you could have used, but it would have taken you higher than the actual tax cap limit.
So we could have raised it
So you could
well
have gone,
beyond
you were within
the
your legal
proposal.
limit based on the fact that you did a zero budget.
And
So-
wasn't the, just let me finish this one
Yeah.
question. Wasn't the mandate that I put down is that we wanted to continue services and the amount of employees the same for 2016 as we had for 2015, even though I'll be leaving, and it'll be
Yes.
up to a new administration as to whether they want to continue that or not?
Yes, sir, to give them
So
enough.
we were budgeting basically for contingency of the new administration?
Yes.
It's a living document, they can change it?
They can change what they can want, or what they want. They don't have to use all the expenditures they have. They can move it by budget transfer. They can choose to leave it, but it's given them enough room to maneuver and to be able to deal with whatever contractual obligations they may see in the next year.
And if he did that, the tax increase on the residents would be 10.3% rather than 9.2, based on another 100,000, 1.1 million, $110,000 coming in, based on $100,000 per 1% that you just did for the supervisor a little earlier.
The 113,000 was what.
Yeah, so
So if he
that's
wanted to go 400,000. he would go for that.
10.3% tax hike. Okay. All right. I have a budget that I can offer to these residents that not only has $1 million in cuts, but also eliminates the brush fee.
Well, I'll entertain that, but we're required to do a budget presentation, do a public hearing on this budget.
I understand that I can't put forward my changes now. If, are you finished with my things? Because I like to collect mine.
Certainly.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, that concludes the presentation. We'll now open it up for a public hearing on this issue. Will the clerk please read?
To hear comments by the public, both in favor and against the 2016 tentative budget as compiled, and vote for and against any items contained therein. No one signed up.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in this public hearing regarding the proposed budget? Seeing none and having no one register, I will close the public hearing. Move on to public comment, privilege of the floor.
Okay. Those members of the public wishing to address the
No,
town.
you don't have to read it
Well, there's two
anymore.
people for privilege of the floor. that was just for the public hearing, but now there is 2 people for privilege of the floor.
Right, but we changed the rules of order for privilege of the floor.
Oh, so these people can't? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they can speak, but you don't have to read the whole privilege, because we changed the rules of order, they're no longer, we changed it, they have 4 minutes to
All
speak.
right, so I don't even have to read it?
You don't have to read it,
Okay.
just tell me who is,
Sorry about that.
As-
Richard Corey?
Arcuri.
I'm sorry. You can-
Arcuri.
You can come up and speak. Rick, could you just give me the correct spelling? I can't, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. It's Arcuri.
Thank you,
I live at 1014 Dudley Road in the town of Rotterdam.
thank you.
Basically, what I wanted to come here and tell you this evening is I have federal licenses. I have 2 of them. One is a ham radio license. The other is a marine radio telephone license. I am legally authorized to have the antennas on my property. Recently, I've been chastised and ridiculed by code enforcement, violations, you name it. I was told that if I didn't like that, I could go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Well, that's what I did. I was supposed to be heard on September 16th at 7:30. I showed up, registered letter came to my house, I showed up. One gentleman laughed at me, another one told me that I was not going to be heard. Okay, fine. So that was the end of that. Prior to that meeting, I received a phone call on a Friday at 3:30 p.m. I'm not going to mention names here this evening whatsoever. I'm going to stick to the facts as briefly as I can. I was told to hand over all evidence in the case. I refused. I said most of the evidence in the case is classified. I'm not at liberty to divulge that information. I was then told, you are not going to be able to talk. You're going to plead innocent, guilty, or appeal. I said, what did you just say to me? He said, you heard me, and hung up. Okay? With that didn't settle too well with me. I had a closed-door meeting with New York State Police. The troopers told me, after I put everything down on the tables, and he told me it was a very large misuse of public authority, meaning the code enforcement coming after me. And let me just back up just for a split second here, because I'm a little agitated up here and it's a little hard to focus. What I do with those antennas on my property is I'm a liaison to the United States Coast Guard. I work indirectly with the Coast Guard. The Pacific Coast is mine on Saturdays at 2100 Zulu, meaning if there's a vessel emergency on the Pacific Coast and a vessel at sea cannot get a hold of the Coast Guard in an emergency SOS, they will be able to get a hold of either myself or members of the relay team. At my house, I have long-range, high-powered radios that will globally reach around the world. We're in the business of saving lives. The code enforcement wants to put those lives in danger. They told me that I'm required to have a $500 permit to keep those antennas up. One politician laughed in my face and he said, the word is out. You have been predetermined already. $500 permit fee to keep those antennas up. Most municipalities don't have a problem at all. I can cite you a friend of mine that lives over in Guilderland. When he was asked by code enforcement what the antennas were, what he was doing with them, they told him $35. And then when he said he was a public servant, the code officer said, forget it. Okay? This is the same effect of wanting to charge. Now I understand why I'm being extorted for $500. Okay? Now I understand. But it's just mind-boggling that you can come after somebody for $500 as a public servant. This has the same weight as if your house is on fire and I'm a volunteer fireman, I come put it out, you write me a ticket for parking in front of the fire hydrant. It's the same weight. And I think it's really morally wrong to do this to me when I've had antennas up for 20, 25 years and even longer with no problems at all. A certain somebody has moved into the neighborhood and now political favors are being done. Well, I think it's terrible. And now, low-level threats are coming into me from more than one individual who sits in level positions in the town of Rotterdam. I'm being threatened. We're gonna get you. We are gonna get you. With that, I notified the FBI, and I also wrote a letter to the governor's office of the state of New York, letting him know what's going on. And I am appalled at everything that's taken place with me. A public servant. We're in the business of saving lives. I have 2 vessels since January 1 who have indicated their lives were saved because of our marine nets. And that is the truth. But I'm chastised, I'm ridiculed by code enforcement. It's just not right. It's just not right.
Mrs. Mercury, can I just ask you something on that?
Yes, sir.
I was walking around in a neighborhood a couple blocks from there,
Mhm.
and someone came up and mentioned to me about that.
Yes,
And said
there's a
that-
couple disgruntled
Yeah,
neighbors.
well, I told him, I said, I'll have to check into it, but I can't tell you anything without knowing, and so I'm glad that I'll have an understanding of it.
Yes.
But what I'm wondering, because what they were saying is, the light, that red light that's flashing
Yep,
around?
that's a warning light for active antennas, and secondary, it's an aerial ID marker, which is classified and I cannot get into.
No, but I mean, so, because I think their problem they have with it is that light is flashing into their bedrooms.
That's impossible. That light, you would have to look out and up. I would get a sore neck.
Well, that's what I'm just saying, what they were saying.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if there's any way of having the antenna without the light flashing, if that's a possibility. Because I think that's the only problem they have with it. Because I don't think it's a problem with you having an antenna and having, you know, having that. I don't see a problem with it. I think that was the comment that they made.
Mhm. And I've had a person come to me and tell me that it's illegal and it's all coming down. I personally witnessed a politician at a certain somebody's house, okay? Well, if you don't like it, it's all coming down. Well, obviously, that person's not familiar with FCC 97.15 subparagraph B, which specifically states, I have a legal right under FCC rules to have those antennas up. The bottom line is people don't understand what I'm doing with those antennas. It's emergency preparedness communications. You're putting people's lives in danger.
I do understand the importance of it. I'm just trying to figure out a way to kind of find a middle road where it works for everybody. That's all I'm trying to do.
Well, that would be nice, but I seem to think $500 is extortion.
Oh, I don't know anything about all that.
Well, I do.
So
You
I
know,
don't-
it was conveyed to me, a politician came up to me, laughed in my face, and said, you're gonna get to keep your antennas up. It's all been predetermined before you even go to the zoning board of appeals the next time. It's all predetermined. You're gonna pay your $500 fine or the antennas are coming down. And the only reason people are not in a lot of trouble, okay, is because I'm classified as civilian contractor. And I was told to stay on the civilian side of the fence, okay? And pretty soon I'm gonna jump the civilian side of the fence. And when I get a hold of the Navy Marine Admiral, there's gonna be trouble, and there's gonna be a lot of people running for cover.
Well, I don't know anything about all these threats or anything
The
that's going on.
threats are coming to me. I'm
Right.
told they're gonna get you.
See, I don't see where.
And I don't name
see where
people,
any of that would actually help anyways, because that's not gonna resolve the people that are complaining, that's not gonna resolve their issue.
Have you
All
seen the
that's
red
doing is
light?
that's hurting you and them. Yeah, I did see it.
Okay, you would have to look out and up, and you don't have shades for your living room? I think if
Well,
you, I think if.
second floor bedrooms, I think it could.
Okay, well, I just have to say this. If you need to complain about a little red light, okay, where you have to look out and look up, I think you need to get a life, okay? This is people where political favors are being done because certain people know people. I've had different antennas up and down for 25 years with no troubles at all. Certain people move into the neighborhood, it's trouble.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've mentioned political and politician about 5 or 6 times now.
Yes,
And
sir.
we all sit here, 4 members of this board, we're all elected officials, and I
Yes,
guess
sir.
we're politicians. Was it any member of this seating legislature?
That, what?
The politicians that made these veiled threats that something would happen?
I don't really have a comment. I can say this.
Was it a member of this legislature that made that comment to you?
About low-level threats,
Yeah,
I don't have a comment.
so that's possibly yes?
I really don't want to comment on anything along the lines of threats. I have notified the
I think it would be
FBI.
important for us to know if a seated member of this legislature was making threats to you, veiled
No,
or
they were not making threats to me. It was conveyed to me that
Okay, my question is, was it a member of this legislature?
I don't have any comment because my
me.
word,
It wasn't me, I even spoke to
I-
him.
I-
I gave him suggestions.
I've never seen you, but I think I can speak for this board that we have not communicated on any threat like that. I would just want you to know that.
And we're
We
the
should look into
only,
this appropriately.
and we're the only political body.
No.
Yeah,
But
'cause-
I refuse to name names, okay? I can tell you the truth.
I didn't ask you to name names, I just want to know if it was a member of this legislature, and we all
Well, that I
agree
don't
that it
have a comment.
wasn't us.
But I can
Really
tell
like
you,
it.
a member of the zoning board of appeals, I'm not gonna name names, told me, you are gonna plead innocent, guilty, or appeal. When I had a meeting with the state police, they told me, Richard, he said that to you? Yes, sir. He said, wow, that's liability. Yes, sir. He told me, he said, you are not to plead innocent, guilty, or appeal. That's the Rotterdam Rule Book Code Enforcement. It's not New York law.
I
My
understand-
properties,
I understand, you said that before, and I don't want to
Yeah.
belabor this, you're supposed to have
No.
4 minutes, and we've gone into probably
Okay.
like 20.
Well, it's very
But-
important
excuse me,
because I'm in the
let me
business
finish.
of
I just wanted to
saying-
address that it wasn't a member of this seated legislature that was involved in that process, and I just wanted to make that clear. So,
nobody on your
No,
board.
I just
Right.
heard about it when I was
oh,
walking
right,
around.
but I was concerned about a member of this legislature making a threat to a citizen, and
Didn't seem like
I was
something-
sure that would, but thank you for your comments.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Glad to have knowledge of the whole situation.
Absolutely.
Because I heard one side, I didn't hear the other side, and I really didn't know what it was all about. Now at least
We're in the
have a-
business of saving lives. Thank you.
Devin Pratt?
We're supposed to be limited to 4 minutes, I know we're a little bit over the other one.
I understand, sir. Devin Pratt, Land and Panhandling Electrical Inspection Agency. This is my second time in front of the board. This situation's been going on for a year, as you well know. Actually, it'll be a year in November. I was here back, I believe, in the end of April. I've been monitoring the town board agendas, the town board minutes. The gentleman on the end, Mr. Valaro, I believe it is.
Valano, yeah.
Valano asked several times to have my electrical inspection approved by the town board. Mr. Calder said several times that the town already has a list of electrical inspectors, but he believed I've been put on it. I found out that I was not put on it. Now, in the town code, under section 112.5, of the authorization of inspectors, it lists the New York Board of Fire Underwriters, no longer in business. The Middle Department Inspection Agency, the Allied Electrical Inspection Agency, and the Inspector LLC. The Allied Electrical Inspection Agency also is no longer in business. We go to the town building department website under forms, it says approved electrical inspection agencies by the town of Rotterdam are the Middle Department Inspection Agency, Commonwealth Electrical Inspection Agency, which is not in the town code, and the Inspector LLC. Also, over this month, I've lost $2,000 approximately in inspections, one of them being at the Rotterdam Town, or the Rotterdam Square Mall. Because it's taken a year to get answers, and somebody at the building department, or somebody's handing out paper at the building department that still has my cell phone number on it. And then they call me back. Well, I can't get a hold of nobody else. Why can't you do it? I have your phone number. They gave me your number. How embarrassing is it for me? It should be embarrassing for the building department, and it should be embarrassing for this town board. A year of my time wasted. So the next step, if something isn't done immediately, I'm gonna file notice of complaint, or notice of claim, and I'm also gonna go to the Attorney General's office. because there's misconduct going on someplace. In all the 11 counties that I inspected, 11 counties, this is the most uncooperative and unprofessional building department I have ever tried to work with. I have never been denied. And every building department and every fire marshal agency has appreciated my support and my inspections. 3 times my agency has sent documentation that your building department and this town board has requested. 3 times. With all the same insurance information, everything that they requested to the T, and nothing has been done. The last thing I'm gonna issue to you guys, before you make a decision, I said that I was gonna file notice of complaint, or notice of claim if something isn't done. Here's a brief and a decision from the New York Attorney General's office and the Supreme Court.
It's supposed to be 4 minutes. I don't know if you have to read us the whole brief.
I'm not gonna read you the whole brief, I'm gonna give it to you.
That'd be good.
Says Atlantic Inland against the Town of Union and New York Board of Fire Underwriters for this very same situation. Guess who lost?
Mr. Pratt, just to follow up on your comments, I brought this up to the building department in April. I brought this up to the building department in August. I brought this up to the building department in October, and now you're here again. I have followed up on it. I've made requests, both in writing and verbally. Look, you want to do business in the town of Rotterdam? At some point, we have to open the town up for business. If you have, and once again, I'm not the person to make the decision if you meet all the qualifications, but I've asked to have you reviewed, and I have not received any response back that you are unqualified in any way. It's just gone nowhere. But I have followed up on it.
The last request that we received back in October said that to take my name off it, it's only the agency, not the inspector, that's being approved. So we resubmitted the forms. And I understand, I appreciate your help on this, but every time I call to speak with somebody from the town board, call the town hall, I get kicked over to the building department. And every time I get somebody at the building department, if by chance they return one of my calls, I think they return 2 out of a dozen calls over a year, I get kicked back, oh, you gotta go talk to the town board again. It's a disgrace. You wanna save money? We'll put in a bid to take over the building department. Thank you.
Did you want to give me the copies?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
That concludes the public comment privilege of the floor. We'll move on to resolutions. Resolution number 197.15 was removed in the agenda session. We'll move on to 198.15. Will the clerk please read?
Upon the recommendation of the Chief of Police, appoint and promote Officer Michael Alderdice to the position of investigator in the Detective Division at the Town of Rotterdam Police Department, full-time probationary with full employee benefits at an annual salary of $81,470.29, effective November 2nd, 2015.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, it's my understanding that this is to fill a vacancy that was created by a retirement at the end of September. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Valano, on the question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bafardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution passes. I would like to invite Lieutenant Brown and Investigator Alderdice to come forward to be receiving the oath of office.
Officer Alderdice is an 8-year veteran of the Rotterdam Police Department. He holds an associate's degree and is also a former United States Marine. I can say, working with him over the past 8 years, that he's more than qualified for this position. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
Michael Alderdice.
Do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of detective
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of detective
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations on your promotion.
Resolution number 199.15, will the clerk please read?
Appoint Susan Kaplan of Rotterdam, New York, 12306, to the position of Recreation Specialist, part-time, at an hourly rate of $8.25, effective November 2nd, 2015.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore on the question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
I want to explain my vote. The thing is, I didn't have a chance when there was an ask if there was any commentary, but this position ultimately ends up saving money because it ends up removing a sewing class. It was budgeted, and it's a different way to provide enrichment for our seniors. It is so important to find ways to give back to the community, whether it be through the youth, for the seniors, recreation in this town, and providing more than just the classic municipal services is really what makes Rotterdam a great place to live. And I am looking forward to this position being offered. I vote yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bavardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 200.15, will the clerk please read?
Appoint Carrie Putnam of Rotterdam, New York, 12306, to the position of lifeguard, part-time, at an hourly rate of $9, effective November 2nd, 2015.
Any discussion?
Quickly, Mr. Supervisor, does the appointment of this position come with the availability of any grants from the state, Office of the Aging and Senior Services? Isn't this benefited in any way?
The benefit is for senior benefits. I don't know if it applies for any type of funding or not. We can certainly explore it.
Okay,
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lemore, on the question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bavardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Resolution number 201.15 was tabled in the agenda session. 202.15, will the clerk please read?
Refer to Planning Commission for report and recommendation thereon, a proposed local law of the year 2015 for the following purpose: to allow for a change of zone request from Amador Group Incorporated, owner, for property located on the southeast corner of Burdick Street and Princetown Road, and is known as tax parcel number 48.-3-2.1. The applicant is requesting a change of zone from retail business B1 to light industrial I1 to facilitate the construction of a 9,600 square foot storage office building with an outdoor gravel storage area on a +1.42 acre parcel.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I just want to say that anytime that we can add more business to Rotterdam, it's always a plus.
I concur. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore, on a question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bavardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 203.15, will the clerk please read?
Declare the town of Rotterdam as lead agency and authorize the town planner to prepare, file, publish, and distribute all documents necessary to comply with 6 NYCRR Part 617, State Environmental Quality Review, relative to the below proposed amendment to the code of the town of Rotterdam for a change of zone.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Lemore, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Calder, the question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bavardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 204.15, will the clerk please read?
Call for public hearing to be held on Wednesday, November 25th, 2015, at 7 p.m. at the John F. Kerwin Government Center, V. Dalton Banbury Hearing Room, 1100 Sunrise Boulevard, Rotterdam, New York, 12306, upon adoption of a proposed local law of the year 2015 for the following purpose: to allow for a change of zone request from Amador Group Incorporated, owner, for property located on the southeast corner of Burdick Street and Princetown Road, and is known as tax parcel number 48.3-2.1. The applicant is requesting a change of zone from retail business, B1, to light industrial, I1, to facilitate the construction of a 9,600 square foot storage office building with an outdoor gravel storage area on a plus or minus 1.42 acre parcel.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore on the question. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 205.15, will the clerk please read?
Notice of intent to nominate Rotterdam Junction in the BOA program to the New York State Department of State for official designation, successful designation of the Rotterdam Junction Brownfield Opportunity Area will make available additional brownfield tax credits for eligible projects and give project grant or financing applications priority and preference from state, federal, and local agencies as allowed by law.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Calder on the question. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 206.15, will the clerk please read?
Adopt local law number 4 of the year 2015 for the following purpose: to amend chapter 257 of the Code of Town of Rotterdam, New York, entitled Taxi Cabs, to include requirements of current inspection and have a current New York State registration. Public hearing was called for at the town board meeting of August 26, 2015. Public hearing was held at the town board meeting of September 23, 2015.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Lamar, and do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Valano on the question. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bufari?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 207.15, will the clerk please read?
Accept the 2014 audit report from Cusick and Company, Certified Public Accountants, LLC, at 7 Airport Park Boulevard, Latham, New York, 12110.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. With going over all the budget, spending all the time going through the budget, I personally haven't had a chance to look over this audit report completely, and I wouldn't want to do anything with it. Plus, we just got the presentation tonight, so I'm going to be abstaining from this.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. During the agenda session, there was that presentation, and I really think that it opened up more questions in my mind than actual answers. We ended up having a pretty interesting debate on several other things, such as, should we have 5-year plans generated every year by the Comptroller's Office, whether it be things like allocation of special fund expenses to the A fund, and as well as the fact that the auditor does not find himself in line with the projections that our former consultant John Polino had put out. At this point, I think that some further digging, and I'm going to be contacting the Comptroller's Office the State Comptroller's Office to get some further opinions on this. At this point, I don't feel comfortable moving on this, and I intend to abstain as well.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second? For purposes of a vote, so we can get the issue unsettled for tonight, I will second the motion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
As I said, I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Valano?
Abstain.
Mr. Calder?
Before I vote, I just want to mention out here in public forum that during this report we just went through with the auditor, which, by the way, is an independent audit that the town does every year. The last question that was asked, I think, was asked by the supervisor, and he said to the accountant, he said, where do we stand as far as towns, villages, and cities in this area, whatever area that they do, and they do many of them here, where do we stand as far as good, bad, or indifferent? He said, we're right in the middle. He said, that's the place you want to be. You're not overtaxing, you're not undertaxing, and it was a very positive report. We go through this every year, and I'm thankful I won't have to ever do this again, but it's the same every year. We get an independent audit. We've asked for state audits before. They wouldn't come in the last time the supervisor asked for one. But this independent audit, to me, is You got what we paid for, we got an answer. It's apparently an answer that other people don't agree with. I mean, it's an independent audit, we don't make it. So I just want to put this out. But anyway, I vote yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
I'm not going to comment because my vote is not going to carry one way or the other, so I will vote yes.
2 yes, 2 abstain.
Motion does not carry. Number 208.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize gasoline expenditures from July 1st, 2015 through and including September 30th, 2015 to be transferred into various accounts.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore, question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 209.15, will the clerk please read?
Accept town clerk's report for the month of September 2015.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore, question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 210.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize budget transfers by the town controller to various accounts for 2015, and in the agenda session, there was a motion made for A 3120-2120 from the training equipment to be A 3120 4900 building repairs from the original amount of 8,000 was passed to go to 6,000.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move as amended.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lemore, a question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution passes. This concludes the,
Mr. Supervisor, before we leave the resolution section, I believe that this is my opportunity, now that we've had the opportunity for a public hearing, to entertain some of the Republican minorities' budget adjustments.
well, before you do that, you referred to the Republican minority. If you take a look, the board is made up of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. You're not a minority.
In
I will
this
say
one,
that you're the Republican caucus maybe, but.
in this one particular setting, Mr. Supervisor, we're not. Because
no, I
whether
think
this,
2 to 2 is even.
whether this budget passes or not, the administration gets the budget that they put in place.
What?
Mine and Councilman Lamore's votes actually mean nothing in this situation. The 9.2% tax hike that we ended up talking about up on the board is a foregone conclusion. We have done, Councilman Lamore and I have done our best to come up with over $1 million in adjustments. We can get rid of the brush fee and minimize the impact to the town. And with that being said, the first motion I make is to reduce line A 1010-110001 Deputy Supervisor. Original amount $5,000, reduced down to $2,500 for a savings of $2,500.
Motion made by Mr. Valano. Do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Lemore, question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
No.
Mr. Buffardi?
Let me explain my vote. I submitted a total budget that covered all the expenses of the town, that covered all the services of the town. I think it's easy to come up with a line item veto such as this to try and criticize things that were expended in. However, it is not part of the total plan. I vote no.
So 2 yes, 2 no.
Does not pass.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor. Next. Line A1010, 4100, office supplies for town council, plus $100.
Motion by Mr. Valano. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Mr. Lemore, question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
No.
Mr. Buffardi?
Again, let me explain my vote. We're taking this out of context of a total budget and going for a line item veto and slashing and burning along the way. Unless it's a total budget that looks at the entire picture, I'm going to vote no.
2 yes, 2 no. Does not pass.
Next, I was denied the ability on the town's dime to attend conferences. I certainly believe that it is important that newly elected officials attend the same conferences that I did, and they should not have to pay for those conferences and educational materials, including the town law book, out of their own pocket as I did. Therefore, I hereby add, because we have 2 new members coming in no matter what happens in November.
3 new.
3, well, that's true, but the supervisor's gonna be in another budget. A 1010 4300 conferences, $0 to $600.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I second it.
Mr. Lemore, question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
No,
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no. Does not
Motion does not pass.
I hereby move to reduce the line A 1110 4360 Justice Stenos Interpreters from $6,000 to $4,000 for a savings of the taxpayer of $2,000.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lemore, question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
no,
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no.
Motion does not carry.
I hereby move for line A 1110 4500 Justice Electricity from $10,000 to $9,000 for savings of $1,000.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I second it.
Question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
no,
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no.
I hereby move line A 1110 4600 Justice Heat from $2,000 to $1,500 for a savings of $500.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Lemore, question, clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
no,
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no.
Motion does not carry.
No matter what ends up happening this year in November, we are going to have a new supervisor. The supervisor should receive the same training that I did for 3 days in Albany, and the supervisor should not have to pay for that expense out of his or her own pocket. Therefore, I move to increase line A 1220 4300 supervisor conferences to $300.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I second it.
Mr. Lemore, question, call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
I'm going to speak on that real quick. I'm not against training for any of the town board members, or especially people that have never worked in government. I think it is a good idea, but I don't want to break apart the budget, and we're going to be here for another hour doing this, it's okay, but I'm going to say no.
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no.
Motion does not carry.
A 1315 4100 Controller Office Supplies, original 2100 down to 1500 for a savings of the taxpayers of $600.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I second it.
On the question, clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
No,
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no.
Motion does not pass.
A 1330 4100 Tax Office Supplies from 500 to 400 $100 savings.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
no,
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no.
1355 4302 Assessor Gasoline, 250 to 150 $100 savings.
Motion by Mr. Valano, do I have a
I
second?
second.
Mr. Lemore, clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
no,
Mr. Dufarty?
Let me restate my position here. If we're going to attack the budget in these minor increments without looking at the entire package, it is not a practical way to do a budget. No,
2 yes, 2 no.
does not carry.
Assessor Auto Repair and Maintenance, 4305 $1,500 to $500,000.
Don't you want to tell us what the savings is?
Yeah, it's $1,000. 1,500 to 500 is $1,000.
Okay, usually you mention what the savings is.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Mr. Lemore, question, call the roll, please.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
no,
Mr. Dufarty?
No.
2 yes, 2 no.
A 1410 115 008 Second Deputy Town Clerk Part-Time, $12,480 to 0, eliminating the position.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Mr. Lemore, question, clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
No,
And Mr. Lafari?
No,
2 yes, 2 no.
does not carry.
Okay. A 1420-100009, town attorney, 87,445. And paralegal part-time, 23,500. We'll do those together. Same department. I want to eliminate the two of those and then bring it on the next motion, contractual legal counsel.
Is that two motions you're making or one?
No, it's one motion right now to eliminate both the town attorney and the paralegal.
Motion by Mr. Valano, second.
I second it.
Mr. Lamore, call the roll, please.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes,
Mr. Calder?
no.
Mr. Lafari?
No.
that was
2
an
yes, 2 no.
that was an opportunity for a $20,000 savings.
I know you're providing us all kinds of opportunity to take the budget out of context, to attack certain things at certain times without looking at the total picture. If you would like to put these all on in one motion, I think we could save some time, and you could tell us how much money we would have saved if we did this.
Well, the thing is,
Let me finish.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Or if you would like to submit an entire budget for us to look at and prepare, and I suggest you wait until after Tuesday to do that, to see who's gonna be sitting on this next legislature, I would entertain that and put it on for a vote. I think that's more practical to look at the entire package instead of going at this line by line by line. You have no idea what the gasoline expenses might be or what the projected costs are gonna be in an individual line. You have to look at the entire picture.
but, okay, go ahead,
What I just
Councilman.
wanted to say though, about that, why we're going line by line, on many budget lines, we did the same thing last year, on many budget lines, every year, it doesn't matter what they're using, every year they're asking for the same amount each year, like they might ask for 15,000. 2 years in a row, they use 6,000, 7,000. Now again, they're asking for 15,000. Well, what we're trying to do is get the budget to where it should be and not have all this extra fluff on every budget line. If you're asking for 15,000 2 years in a row, you're not using anywhere near that, then just put it at like, say, 9,000.
Well, if that was,
And this is what's happened on every budget line just about. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
if that was the case, I might agree with you, but that is not the case. This is just an attack on the budget. You're gonna come through with a bunch of motions that show that we could have saved this much money if you went along with our process without looking at the entire picture. You're not part of the budgeting process. You're not sitting with department heads, you're not asking them for justifications, you're not comparing the expenses to the year before. It's an impractical, well, no, you made an abstract number about something that we don't even know what it is. This is not something that you can do a comparative analysis from the floor of this, or from the dais of this legislature without looking at the total picture. Discussing this with department heads, discussing this with a controller, crunching the numbers in a practical way. You're coming up with a way to show that we could save, if this passed, and you know it's not going to, this entire amount of money. So if that's the picture you want to paint, why don't you just paint the whole picture? Why don't you tell us what all your motions are going to be and what the total savings will be? We'll vote on that and just save us all the time.
Well, the thing is that is what we were trying to do, is go budget line. And what we're getting these numbers from? The budget. Every budget, it shows the previous 2 years. And we even went as far as going back to previous third year. So that's where we're getting the numbers from. We're not making the numbers up. They're showing what they ask for every year, then they show what they use, and how much they allocate, how much they use every year. We're not making those numbers up, so we're looking at that for the last 3 years. We're looking at the history, what you're talking about, the history of the spending. That's what we're looking at, what you're asking for. And every year, I guess it's just a nice round number. Every year you ask for the same thing, whether you never use that amount, so that way there's extra money to bring it wherever they want to bring it. But we can't do that. We need to start actually having real numbers the way they really show according to what we need to use. And that's what we need to do.
And like I said from the beginning of the meeting, when I was doing my budget presentation, is that this budget that I'm proposing is not gonna pass, because I was told that 6 months ago that it wasn't gonna pass. It's been said in a public forum that my budget won't pass before you saw number one, before you saw any numbers. So to criticize my budget and not come in with a total budget of your own, I think is irresponsible, and it's just a play for the camera. But you wanna do that, go ahead. Do each individual motion, we'll do that.
We do have a full budget to present. We have hundreds of transfers. And the only number that really matters is a 9.2% tax hike. That's the number that matters, Mr. Supervisor.
That's the number that you're trying to extrapolate out of what you're doing, then you're gonna come up with this huge savings by cutting all these things out, when in fact there's a practicality of what things have to be spent for.
Now-
You know, you've made it perfectly clear, you wanna slash and burn the police department, you made it perfectly clear that you want to reward the highway department. You know, we know the theme that you're going here, why don't you just put it all on the table with one entire budget, and we can vote on it.
And what difference does that make? Because no matter how I craft it, you get your budget anyways. You do.
We
You,
will
you,
vote
you
on my
get,
budget.
you get your budget anyways. So we can sit here and go line by line and I can explain how I can save $1 million, right? But if you're gonna vote no, no matter what I present, there's no reason to do that.
I'm going to vote no on whatever you present, as long as you do it in this forum. If you want to come through with a total budget that has a total explanation as a result of it, that has calculated change, that we can compare to other budgets, I would entertain voting on that. If you want to do it like this, I'm going to vote no for every one of your motions.
We're not going to do it your way. So,
That's fine, that's fine. But I'm saying I'm not going to do it your way. You're the one that said you're in a minority. I guess I'm in a minority now. That 2-2 is I'm of the minority Democrats that will vote no.
in this particular circumstance, because of a quirk in the town law, the town supervisor gets whatever he wants if the budget fails.
Wait a minute. You were offered the opportunity to hire a fifth person on this board to appoint it. You said, under absolutely no circumstances do I want a fifth person to break the tie.
It would
I like
have
the
to
i-
be somebody-
You said you liked the idea of a 2-2 board because it brought about, it empowered you in some way to be able to argue and articulate some of the things that you wanted to say. So now you're being hung with the rope that you tossed out there. We will vote no on every one that you bring forward.
Well,
2-2 board will not break this tie.
right, we understand all this, but what you were saying is that we need to go by the whole budget and that you're taking in consideration the whole town with the budget. Well, you're not. The reason why we're trying to do any cuts in different departments is because all the departments aren't being represented. Water department, like I said, they don't really have the manpower to do all the water main breaks. You don't have any money for paving. So you're allocating your money in 1 or 2 locations, and everybody else in the town, to hell with them. That's pretty much what I see.
Well, and I say my argument's the other way. I think we have a highway department that wants to allocate money for paving of highways that they're not doing legally. That's purchasing it illegally and inappropriately and paving their own road. If you want to say that that's good government, I disagree with it. I personally favor public safety, and you two don't. So we're gonna have our inconsistencies of what we agree with here. My budget will include everything we do in 2015. I put that forward. Vote no on it.
Add a tax increase to our residents of almost 10%.
As an increased tax levy of 1.86% that they will receive back.
However, the increase in levy is not what you pay, ladies and gentlemen.
The increase in,
Because, Mr. Supervisor, I heard you talk. The increase in levy is the amount that ends up getting collected from everybody. However, because of a reduction in the value of the property in this town, on businesses, you homeowners are not going to be paying that 1.8% or whatever, which is going to get refunded. The shift from business to your residents, and because each of you haven't had an equal reduction in the value of your house for assessment purposes, each of you will be taxed 10% harder, 9.2% harder than you were last year. The effect of saying that the levy hasn't gone up doesn't mean anything when you have to still pay 9.2% more, okay? What you call it, if you call increases fees, if you call increases shifting tax burden onto residents, it doesn't really matter what you call it. If the effect is, at the end of the year, you have to provide the functioning of the town 9.2% more money out of your pocket. Now that 9.2% is compounded, because included in that 9.2% is also the brush fee that got tacked onto as well, okay? those combined, right, the brush fee ended up resulting in a significant tax increase last year. If we went line by line and there was going to be some meaningful discourse up here, ultimately my budget not only removes the 9.2%, gets it down to a manageable 2%, which you will end up getting refunded by the state, but it also abolishes the brush tax or fee, depending on what you consider in your individual capacity. This is a fiscally responsible shot in the arm that this town needs.
That certainly has a wonderful sound to it. I would like to see it in the form of a total budget that you could submit to us, that we could read, that we could assess, that we could evaluate, that we could perform some type of gradient function to see if it's actually true, the same as you're going to challenge mine, and we could vote on it.
Did I try to present it at the last meeting and you would have had time to review it for this meeting?
Present it now, we'll review it for the next meeting. We can certainly approve it by then.
Are we gonna have another meeting before November 20th?
There's no scheduled meeting.
We don't have a scheduled meeting, but if you want to bring forth a budget proposal and ask for a special meeting, we could do it that way.
You know, I tried to present my budget at the last meeting and you wouldn't hear any of it, not a single line.
No, you called for the special meeting. You called for the special meeting. I had one thing on the agenda.
And I called for the special meeting and I wasn't able to add anything to the agenda.
The special meeting was a requirement that you added on that wasn't necessary. What you were trying to get away from was the public being able to have the right to a public hearing to be able to speak on that. As a matter of fact, you even voted no for the public to be able to speak on this.
I wasn't ready because once, and the thing is, right, see, it's very easy, right, to recast history when there was not a videographer available.
But we have the vote and we have it in a recording. And there wasn't a videographer available because you called for a special meeting, the videographer was not available.
One thing that you're not mentioning is, ahead of time, we were sent something saying that if we didn't vote for a public hearing, which we had no problem voting for a public hearing, but we had a problem voting for it that night when we were handed the budget that night, and then we're supposed to automatically vote for a tentative budget, because that's the thing. See, what they're not telling you about is all the things, that the intricacies involved. In order to put that budget to the public hearing, you have to vote yes for the tentative budget. But why do you vote yes for a tentative budget when you just got handed it that moment? You need to look it over, go over it. That's why we asked for a public hearing, or why we asked for a special meeting, so we could go over the budget, present what changes we thought would be needed. We didn't expect to get a whole lot of them passed, but we at least expect to be heard. That did not happen. Then they reminded us at that meeting, you do remember what was sent to you about having what you need to do, and you need to pass the public hearing. So we were more or less kind of, it was, I don't want to call it a threat, but we were told we had to do this or else.
You're absolutely incorrect. You were not given the budget that day. You were given the budget last meeting. You had.
That's what I'm talking about.
No,
That's
I'm not
when we
talking about
didn't
the special meeting.
I'm not talking about the special.
You had it before the special meeting.
We're not talking
know,
about
we're
the
not
special
Let me
meeting.
finish. Let me finish. I'll let you guys speak. You requested a special meeting, and I put on the agenda to call for a public hearing. Had nothing to do with my budget, to call for a public hearing. I didn't say adopt a tentative budget or adopt a preliminary budget. Was to call for a public hearing as is a requirement of law under New York State.
Calling for the public hearing is the adoption of the tentative budget,
Exactly.
according to law.
Exactly.
Budget will be voted on. You're unhappy with the 2-2 block that we have here. You're also responsible for not letting a fifth person come on this board. Fifth person would have broken the deadline.
How are we going to have a fifth person if anyone that you wanted to pick, we didn't want? Anybody that we wanted to pick, you didn't want? How do you get a fifth person?
No, that's not true. I'm
that's
going
not
to
what
chime in
That's
here.
not true.
Because this gridlock is your doing. And Mr. Valano, you looked us right in the face and you said, I like it this way. That's exactly what you said to us. And that's the truth. So, please, it's my turn. This gridlock, this whole mess is because you guys wouldn't let nobody else come on this board to break this gridlock. Whether they be a Democrat, whether they be a conservative, Republican, we told you we didn't care. Matter of fact, we even offered to have you go out and look for Republicans. We found a couple that came, and we said, look at them, they said, no, we don't want them either. You didn't want nobody here. It wouldn't have mattered who we had brought in here. You wanted nobody here. And you got just what you wanted. This gridlock today is because you wanted it this way. So now you got it, you're gonna live with it until December 31st.
We did not want this gridlock. In fact, actually, Mr.
You never brought us a name. We told you, Rick.
Mr. Caldo, you crossed the gridlock because Mike Viscusi voted with us on one vote, and he got chewed out royal that night to where he was to tears, and then the next day he resigned. So don't say we caused the gridlock. You caused the gridlock.
I see, okay. Gridlock was caused by us.
It was over your pay, Mr. Deputy Supervisor.
I
It was a
understand.
reduction of your pay
Yeah.
that caused the gridlock.
I didn't make the gridlock.
Okay.
And
All right.
I didn't ask Mr. Viscusi to leave either.
As long as we understand that this was about your reduction in pay that resulted in the temper tantrum,
Mr.
it's
Viscusi
okay.
resigned from this board. And neither Mr. Calder or myself asked him to resign from the board. We did not approach him on that matter.
It's a shock to me.
We wound up with a 4-member board. We tried to fix it after that. You said, no, we like the 2-to-2. We like the split. It gives us empowerment.
So you got it. So we gotta live with it.
There's actually no deadlock because you're gonna get what you want, so. Let's move on. I have nothing further because there's no reason to waste the time of the taxpayers.
That concludes the resolution portion of tonight's meeting. We'll move on to committee reports. Does anyone have anything under committee reports? Move on to miscellaneous. Does anyone have anything under miscellaneous?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. The only thing that you need to know that to prove that the taxpayers are dissatisfied with the level of service and the extent of taxation in this town is to drive around. It's very simple to count the for sale signs in the town of Rotterdam. And when we buckle down and weather out a 9.2% increase, it's very unfortunate. We're gonna see more of those. This administration and their budget has turned Rotterdam from a nice place to live to a great place to leave. And you can count, driving up and down the street, how many people feel that way. Me and Councilman Lamore are trying to restore fiscal sanity to this town. Cuts are painful. It's very, very easy to say yes. It's very easy to say yes to the 10 to 20 people that show up on a regular basis and ask for special interest to be satisfied. The problem is, though, that the silent majority, the other 28,000 residents of this dear town that don't show up and don't complain, are far quieter than the 20 to 40 people that do demand. It's very unfortunate in this town that we have so much and it's directed to so few. There are needs in this town that go far beyond the needs that we're accommodating for. And I hate to see more people leave this town. I've lived in this town my entire life. I played baseball on their fields. I rode my bike on their roads. We're leaving very, very little for the residents, except for another 9.2% hole in their wallet. Seriously, this administration has to consider alternatives because the direction that we're going in, and we don't need charts. Ask your neighbors. They're going to tax havens. They're going to Malta. They're going to Clifton Park. They're going to other places that don't have the extensive burden that we do here in the town of Rotterdam. If you ask even the public servants of this town, well, where should I live? They can't wait to leave. And that's sad. Some of our highest paid on our payroll are clamoring to get out of this town. And they ask, well, why do you stay? It's for the only reason. It's the love of your neighbors. Nobody would take this job for anything other than that. You have to love this community, to have to be willing to throw yourself on the fire and deal with the slings, barbs, and arrows that get thrown at you. There is not an easy task that's presented to this town board. I am sensitive to the 28,000 people that pay our salaries. I'm sensitive to my neighbors' needs. And I hope that at some point, the 28,000 people are heard. And there'll be an opportunity for that on November 3rd at the polls. Thank you.
Anything else under miscellaneous? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Mr. Valano,
I second it.
Mr. Lamore, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.